What is up, everyone? Welcome to Meme Ranch. We are just 3 weeks out, just under 3 weeks out, till the MAGA King himself receives his crown, his golden crown that we have made here. We are, let me pull up that picture real quick, just to get people. Oh, you have it right there. No picture needed. No picture required.
That is a gold, 24 karat gold MAGA hat.
And we are going to get that. We're manifesting this crown atop Trump. Hopefully we can get it to him before the election, but if not, it will be a nice trophy gift after.
Very heavy.
Those polls are looking insane right now. I know we haven't come on here and talked since the paradigm shift.
Here, let me do this real Kayla, let me do this real quick.
Oh, that's nice. Can we do a hat ASMR? That's really nice. Well, tonight Kamala had her first sit-down interview with Fox News, and I could hear people on the train ride home talking about how bad this was going. I mean, not necessarily, but I was like listening to it like on kind of like moderate volume, and I just heard some people just like kind of like make these like sort of sighs whenever they were like listening to her voice. And it wasn't because I was playing it on high volume. It was kind of like a low volume, but it's like people knew, you could just like feel it in the air how bad it was. That
Were they MAGA fans or Kamala fans? Oh,
in DC, no, none of them are MAGA fans. They're all very disheartened Democratic voters. It's going to be an interesting election to watch. I know a lot of people still think there's going to be cheating involved, things of that such, but I do think that it is going to be too big to rig. I'm saying it here right now on the Meme Ranch. I think that it's basically you're like behind the tide right now if you're still concerned about Trump's popularity. I think that he has a very good swing state strategy. I think that Scott Presler is doing basically the Lord's work when it comes to getting people registered to vote. Registration time is kind of like almost over now, so it's kind of getting down to, you know, what we're seeing with mail-in ballots. And right now the mail-in ballots are looking pretty good. I shouldn't say mail-in ballots. I'm talking about early voting. So many different ways to vote. So many different ways to cheat, right? But no.
So many ways to count a vote.
Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, I think that right now things are looking pretty optimistic. I think if you're a Trump supporter, you should be feeling pretty good. Maybe I'll be wrong. You know, I'm just gonna say it here for the record.
Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe for the first time ever.
I was wrong. I've been wrong about 2 elections in a row. So don't put any salt in what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying it, because I think.
Shall we enlighten what your voting record is for the last 2 elections?
No, but it's not about voting.
I know.
It's about what just being, you know, incorrect. So maybe I'll be wrong a 3rd time. That would really suck. But maybe I'll be right this time. That's what I'm hoping for. That's all I really want, is I just want to be right about 1 election. Can we do it? Well, we have this interview with Kamala, and
yes.
Then it was disgusting just how awful she did. My camera will be back here in a moment, but while we're getting ready for this video, let's just kind of get it on. I have the full interview right here, streaming on X. Also, we're streaming on X. If you are watching this there, please give us a like, please give us a retweet. That would be awesome. We're trying to get more involved with X, but let's just get right into this and see how bad this interview really was.
Vice President, thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Bret.
You know, voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration, because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you
now,
just a number?
You know what I'm going to talk about.
1 million, 3 million?
Filling up space.
Let's just get to the point. Okay.
Yes.
The point
Let's just
is
get to the point.
that we have a broken immigration system, that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have an immigration
I'm not
system
finished.
million
What's
people
it just?
have been released
It's just filler words
into the country. And
already.
Let me just finish. I'll get to the
Like
question. I
what?
promise.
How long are we
beginning
into
to
this
answer.
already, Expala? And how many like filler phrases have we seen?
I'm already
4 or
thinking
5?
this is going to be a long interview right now. We just started. We just hit play on this, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Like
No.
what is?
Do we really have to do this react?
I don't know. Maybe we won't make it through the whole thing, but I do think that there are some parts of this that are very telling and revealing. And you know, this is kind of the softball interviews. Even to her fans, haven't been doing it. They haven't been convincing to the Democratic voter, and it's causing a lot of bedwetting, and it's causing a lot of concern. I'm seeing it more in my feeds right now on Instagram. People are posting Trump hate reels galore. The ones that, you know, obviously are going to vote for Harris, but the ones that also like kind of have like actual like a pulse on the way people are perceiving things politically. They're getting a little nervous, honestly, because this isn't like people have been pointing out too how she's really not leaning into the fact that she would be the first woman president. I mean, she has, you know, like her surrogates have a little bit, and you're seeing all these like it's masculine to vote for a woman, you know, kind of ads and stuff like that. But she herself is not doing it, which I find that very interesting. You know, she's not doing the whole Hillary Clinton like it's been my dream since I was a little girl kind of thing. But I just find that the fact that she's not leaning into that to be interesting, and but she's also not pulling anything out, you know, interesting as far as policy goes. So there's nothing interesting to people right now about her, which is just, it's a shame if you are a genuine supporter of her, because it's not, it's
Wait,
she's definitely the underdog.
there are genuine supporters of Kamala.
There's people who have psyoped themselves. There's people from my school that I still follow that I don't know why I still follow.
But you're saying it's not because they hate Trump, but they genuinely like the candidate Kamala.
It's that forced grin where it's like they would never admit to you that they genuinely don't like her and that it's all about Trump. But I digress. I mean, everyone knows these types of people. Everyone has like at least one or two of these people in their peripherals. You know, if you don't live in a very blue place, then maybe not. But you know, it's just kind of par for the course at this point. But let's get into it.
When you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released for custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the... Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
I'm
and they
in the
didn't
middle
Wow.
of
that bill.
responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one.
Obviously, that's the moment that everyone's been talking about on Twitter for the last several hours.
I think. Do you think Bret's in a hurry because he's only got 29 minutes or whatever it is, and he knows she's going to string out these answers?
She is kind of running out the clock.
Yeah, I think that's probably why he's behaving that way. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he's an excellent interviewer. He's done this for a long time. And, you know, a lot of people gave him flack for, you know, when he called the vote for Arizona in 2020, but that wasn't even his fault. He was just being fed that information from the in the brain.
If I remember right, we did a video on that. He pushed back. He said we can't call it this early.
Yeah. No, Bret's a good interview. I like him. He's just a straight news but no BS kind of person.
He's a bear of an anchor.
Oh yeah.
One, that to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border.
You're shaking your head.
Border bill would have...
Kaylin.
We're sorry for our boy, our Oklahoma boy. And I emphasize boy because that's the way that he behaved in comparison to what the rest of the MAGA Republicans were doing, which is not blinking and making concessions when it comes to border immigration policy. And that boy I'm referring to is James Lankford. You know, he was adamant that this legislation that they were going to pass was going to solve the border solution, and it was bipartisan, and that it was going to fill the cracks that had been opened up since Biden took office. But the problem with it was, and this has been covered time and time again by people who were skeptical or opposed to it, is that it still allowed the capacity of people to pass through CBP gates every single day. It was like 5,000 a day. And what is that still doing? I mean, that's basically guaranteeing at least 5,000, which is not a number that, you know, I think, even though perhaps it was different in comparison to no capacity, it's still a high number that is only putting bandages on a multi-hold broken machine that is the immigration system. It's the best way that I can put that. So, I mean, I remember this being a whole thing. I know that I think there was some people in the McConnell world that were interested in getting this passed. I know that, you know, Lankford's very close to McConnell too.
I felt like it was the camel nose under the tent.
Mm-hmm.
It was just going to get further and further into the tent because you just let that much in. More comes in.
That's a really good image. Yeah, I agree.
I've put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
6 Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you,
but actually is focused on fixing it.
6 Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the 6
Sanders
Democrats.
voted against it?
But more importantly, back to the original premise.
Is that surprising? Kaylin, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. You should have spoken up sooner.
I just no, it just happened.
Oh, okay. But But I think that looking at this list, it makes sense why. Like, look at the spread. You have different reasons for all these different people.
I can understand Sienna, and I don't know about Sanders, but
like all these, so like the top people are obviously the ones who are like, we're fine with any and all types of immigration. We don't want to cut people out who are in need. Those types of lawmakers. Butler and Padilla. See, okay, I don't know about Butler, but I could see Padilla and Sinema, their reasoning kind of being in lockstep, or not in lockstep, but more in line with conservatives who felt like it didn't do enough. Because these are senators that are also border state senators, and they have to please their constituents. And Sinema is very much sort of an alternative Democrat, kind of like a Manchin. And Padilla is like that when it comes to the border.
I thought she changed to independent. Doesn't she caucus with the?
She is, yeah.
She caucuses with the Democrats, but she's an independent.
Yeah, she caucuses with the Dems, but I still, she came into office as a Democrat, so she kind of has that aura still lingering over her.
Democrats. But more importantly, back to the original premise, Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday, campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Bret,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There is no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain.
Kaylin.
I just love when she repeats herself, man. It's
sarcastically.
Oh yeah.
She's filling up space.
Yeah.
Or she's trying to get him to shut up also.
But it's just such a formulaic thing at this point. Like, she does it at all of her rallies where she just does the same exact thing. And yeah, someone on the left or the Democrats might say like, oh, Trump repeats himself sometimes. But yeah, but he does it a lot faster. She's doing it to pass the time. This is only a 27-minute interview. And you're telling me that she's speaking at this rate and she's repeating herself on issues and filling in, small, air gaps in between that dead air. And, she's trying to do that intentionally to run out the clock. It's whoa, what was that?
My phone.
Why are you watching the stream, buddy?
I just turned it on to see what was going on.
Okay. I was was there a comment?
No.
Okay.
That the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together.
Madam Vice President.
To ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Bret.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's
Wow.
life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I am so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you
Brett,
want to answer
in all
her?
fairness, I told you, I feel awful.
Well,
for
I don't
what
understand
she
the
and her
answer.
family
Let's talk about
experienced.
somebody who
During that
doesn't
time,
want to
you said
participate in
repeatedly that the
solutions.
border was
Is she referring to Trump or?
That's like, yeah, that's exactly a reference to Trump. That's a reference to, like, she's just saying, let's talk about my opponent without saying, let's talk about my opponent. So it sounds a little softer, but it's just so,
What the hell? He's like, let's build a wall. Let's deport him.
yeah, it's like, it literally, cause she knows that he has the favorable immigration policy.
You know that.
So she's literally just saying, let's talk about something negative about Trump. That's literally what that
response is catered to people who don't follow the news. They have it reported to them. So you clip that and it sounds like she knows what she's talking about and that her opponent has no plan. But if you don't listen to the news, you don't know what she's saying is just gibberish, right? I mean, you could frame that in a way that makes her look good.
Yeah, it's like artists and entertainers frame their content for 15-minute or for 15-second and 30-second sound bites. And she's doing the exact same thing because she realizes that that's what they can clip and put on TikTok. And that's about the attention span that most of her voters have, is for those types of things.
To be fair, I think it's probably most voters. But yeah, I agree.
secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald
That's a
Trump's
good lawyer
administration, even
question.
before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure you probably, I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that's going to get fixed, Brett.
Well,
that's
hit pause.
how the system works.
That's the premise of this question.
I have a question. So how far into this are we?
We are about a third, almost a third into it.
Okay, and we've covered 2 or 3 topics.
Mm-hmm.
The border crossing causing American deaths, that's one. What was before that?
And before that, it was about
People who voted for legislation that kind of built into this.
It was a border legislation questions, yeah.
And before that, I think there was another topic before that. I'm just trying to keep track of what we're actually.
No. It's only been on the border so far.
I agree with you. It is
Wow.
it is a topic of
So,
discussion.
but what have we
that-
established so far from this line of questioning with Brett?
That she is willing to deflect pretty much at every talking point. Like, I mean, that basically she's willing to go as far as to say, I feel sorry for that person, but I won't accept any blame whatsoever.
Yeah.
for
Okay.
that.
So what I heard, right. So what I heard is I feel very sorry for that person, and it's my opponent's fault who has no solutions. That's what I actually heard.
Yeah, that's basically, if you can sort of chat GPT summary what's been said so far, that's basically,
Okay.
yeah.
1/3 of the way in. Okay. So this doesn't look good because she's not really addressing the issue. It is a campaign answer.
Yeah, and we can just fast.
That's how the system works.
That's the premise of this question. There were 90 plus executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talked to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it. They want support. They want support, and that's what that border security bill would have done. These guys down at the border, these men and women, they're working hard. They're working around the clock. I get it.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president, and there have been changes. And you've talked.
What do you think of that? I was
sitting here trying to process that. Again, it's like, yeah, I'm with you. This is not my fault. This is because the people wouldn't pass the legislation, and my opponent doesn't want answers.
It's all going to come down to whether people buy that and actually think that that's a valid excuse. And it gets back to what I said earlier in the video about what this border bill did. And it's about whether you think that that was sufficient or not. And would it have helped for, a brief term? I don't really know if it would have, because it seems like it would have just diminished overall. It would have kept consistent the number of people coming in every day. But what does that do other than keep a number consistent?
Yeah, I just think
it's
Go
like,
ahead.
what does a capacity do whenever the number allowed should be at 0?
Well, this is the game that Democrats play with how they present their bills, because they want to make the problem just a little bit worse in their favor. So if you don't go along with it, then they have the issue that you didn't want to do what they wanted to do, so you caused the bigger problem. And they know that voters in the end vote on emotion, and emotion is what moves narrative. So if they can get you to buy into the fact that, yes, I'm not really addressing the problem, I'm blaming my opponent for the emotions you're feeling right now, that you're upset and these people died and they don't want to go along and help. This is their fault, so you need to vote for me. I understand. I'm understanding more as I really, really pay attention to politics here, how they move the ball down the field.
Mm-hmm. And this is, I think you're exactly right. If you're the one that's waving the hypnosis watch, then you understand the craft behind what's going on here, so to speak.
Talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I'm very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
So decriminalizing border crossings, like you said in 2019.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and I've not done that as vice president. I will not do that as president.
So these are evolutions that you've had.
But let's be very clear. I'm the only person who's running for president who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa cartel to the Guadalajara cartel to people who have trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career going after people who present a threat to the safety of the American people and cross our border with the intent of doing us harm and cross our border illegally. And I will do that work as vice president. I take that work quite seriously.
This is a time when voters, especially here.
So, oh man. Okay, here's an immigration chart that we can look at. So this is let me make sure I get the source. This is from The Economist, so this isn't exactly a right of center or maybe the most objective source, but it seems like, they're trying to be fair, and it's true that, in recent time, even crossings like under Bush were even lower than Obama's. So it's just natural that this is an ascending issue. But the problem is that this is trying to frame it as it's just like going up and up and up, no matter who is in charge. And here's another one. I think that this is immigration courts actually. So this is why it's from the ascending perspective. But if I can get another one that is talking about illegal immigration in general, let me see if I can find that.
Do we have chats going on?
No chats right now.
Okay,
no.
I thought we did. Sorry.
Let's see. Open image in new tab.
My bad.
No, my bad, because I wasn't trying to find the immigration courts chart. I mean, that's interesting, but yeah. So here is what it looks like under Trump and whenever ICE started taking hold of the situation there in around 2019. And as you can see, the immigration numbers just plummet, and we're seeing a pretty effective policy going on here under Trump. And then, as you can see, under Biden, you have this like more of a cascading, like consistent number of crossings.
So the
And
Biden,
arrests.
actually the Biden graph looks more like the bill they tried to pass. So they would have just been putting into law what that looks like right there.
Mm-hmm.
A threshold, a consistent threshold, a leaky boat.
Yep. Yep. And obviously, that high peak under Trump is pretty much, like before, like the tools of the trade for handling the situation weren't quite enacted yet. So obviously there was less that you could do there in the beginning.
Wow. Look how low it actually dipped during COVID too.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an effective policy. If there's one thing about COVID that was beneficial for the conservative policy, it was the fact that having those quarantine pandemic measures really deterred people. And it's almost like you need to like pluck or extract the enforcement that those were accompanied by, and minus the pandemic, but it's like keep the pandemic, border measures, because obviously it's not like all those people were like, oh, we're staying home and staying safe, so we don't want to get sick. You know what I mean? It's like those people weren't immigrating from home.
What kind of legal
They just were blocked at the gate.
what kind of a legal landscape are we going to have if Trump does get back in here in a few days?
As far as like legal challenges to his policies, or
To immigration in general. Like what kinds of things do you think you'll see coming up the circuits? Or is there anything out there now that they're just kind of waiting on?
So I think that what's going to become something that will be like an immigration court issue is, I think that there's like this story out right now about how Trump wants to use an 18th century law for immigration policy.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can find more about this. Forbes reported on it, and I can get the article to pop up, hopefully.
So there's nothing kind of out there in one of the lower circuit courts working its way up that has been, because of these charts are basically charting the past. So I thought maybe there might have been something that had been challenged from the result of all this stuff, those charts.
So like all the things that Republicans have filed in order to like address those charts? Is that what you're asking?
Or just maybe branchers, or I don't know who, right? Maybe people who have been assaulted or killed, or other outside groups. I know for one, I'm pretty sure that ACLJ probably does have some stuff. I couldn't tell you what.
Yeah, I mean, there's been countless lawsuits to the Biden administration policies from states like Texas and things like that. Those usually surround the legality of Texas having its own sort of international immigration sort of handling, such as like our Operation Lone Star, using the Texas National Guard, and there's been a lot of state challenges to address those peaking numbers under the Biden administration. There was that big Title 42 fight that was trying to keep Title 42 in place, which is basically, trying to keep, the pandemic immigration measure in place. I think that under Trump, he could try to pass something similar to Title 42, but just for non-pandemic times, just something that has like a similar effect as that policy.
You heard the breaking news. And this is kind of off topic, but the breaking news about how he was going to just ban transgender participation.
Oh yeah.
How could he do that?
I don't know.
I figured immediately he does it, it's going to be challenged, right?
Yeah, I mean, like that's how things always are, every single thing that Trump wants to do right now, it all greatly depends on how much he can get. Same thing under Biden. There's been a lot of policies that Biden's tried to do that have been challenged in court, like the student loan forgiveness and things like that. But I think that what's going to happen is I think that if Republicans have a majority in either chamber, that'll give a lot of support for trying to band together around some kind of border immigration, legislation that will give him more leeway. I mean, it really does, matter a whole lot, how Republicans do in both chambers with the elections. Like a lot of people think that just focus on the president, but all of these down ballot races are really important. I just wanted to point out that Trump has been talking about using the this 18th century law. Trump has repeatedly invoked the Alien Enemies Act in recent days when discussing.
That's a cool name.
It is.
Alien Enemies.
When discussing his intention to deport undocumented migrants en masse if elected, saying at a recent rally in California he would use the law to target and dismantle every migrant criminal network operating on American soil. The act allows the president to direct that all native citizens, denizens, or subjects of a country the U.S. is at war with who are male and at least 14 years old can be apprehended, restrained, secured, and removed as alien enemies. The law only applies to countries the U.S. has declared war against, or in the case, any invasion or predatory incursion that is perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the territory of the United States by any foreign nation or government. So, I mean, this seems like a good act. I mean, this seems like, it seems like it has a lot of good side rails, so that obviously this is, all the bedwetters who think that this is going to like lead to, every person of color or something like that, like being subject to being thrown out the country. That's not how this works.
Wait. Could it possibly get Hassan kicked out?
Oh, that would be amazing. Oh, yes.
Alien enemy Hassan.
Yeah, he should just change his Twitter handle to that right now.
That would be awesome.
I want to go back to this interview since we promised to get through it. It's almost done. We're about halfway through. So let's get to it.
This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery. For prisoners. For prisoners. Every trans.
Oh, this is the there for they, them, not for us.
So are you still...
Oh, they didn't play the whole thing.
...to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law. And it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries
you know what? You got to take responsible for what happened in your administration.
That was her best answer of the night so far.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment surgeries?
I will follow the law, just as I think Donald Trump would say he did.
You would have a say as president.
Like I said, I think he spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas, at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that...
Okay, you could tell she was more prepared for this question.
It's really quite remote. And again, his...
Yeah, like, I think they definitely screened this one through her. Because she knows about the price tag of it and everything. They told her to say how much he spent about this.
I mean, big deal. So what? Things are expensive. It's because of inflation, Kamala. If Joe wasn't so bad, it wouldn't be so expensive, okay?
Well, from her perspective, she thinks that people are going to gravitate that it's like, oh, Trump spent X million amount on this lie about me. Like that's basically what she's getting at. But she could do better just to say that, he spent $20 million on a slanderous campaign, which is in effect what she's saying. But
that sounds like what Trump would say.
Yeah, but
she
she's
spent
not
$20 million on these lies.
She could say that a little bit better. She's not.
I agree.
Yeah.
She's not used to talking.
No.
Policy was no different. Look at where we are, though.
They say
on plans for the American people, I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is about taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need. My plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy, his would make them weaker, would ignite inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as President of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future and a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country.
What's your plan?
For the economy does exactly that.
What's your plan?
Would be, again, to give tax cuts to billionaires and the biggest corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
It's interesting you said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do.
She never said what a plan would be.
Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden, and so that would be one change in terms of. But also, I think it's important to say, with 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So,
as Biden puts on the MAGA cap,
but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently.
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president
she is running from him right now.
I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership. I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago, and the business sector, and others who can contribute to the decisions that I make about, for example, my plan for increasing the supply of housing in America and bringing down the cost of housing, addressing the issue of small businesses, which is about working with the private sector to bring more capital and access to capital to our small.
This drives me crazy because it's just platitudes. I mean, just dive into something.
Yeah, she's so good at the platitudes.
Business leaders, including my plan for a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and for small businesses, extending the tax deduction from $5,000 to $50,000.
We've heard a lot about those plans in recent days. Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years, so what are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade in which we have been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump.
Burden alert. Burden alert. Burden alert.
Is that her key word? Burdened?
Become unburdened by what has been.
Oh my gosh. You're right.
And implemented to divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers at each other. Rhetoric and an approach to leadership that suggests that the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down instead of what we all know. The strength of leadership is based on who you lift up. The strength of an American president, which is one who understands that the vast majority of us have more in common than what separates us.
Madam Vice President, more than 70% of people
that is
tell
about turning the
pollsters-
page on rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Bret.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track.
I need to lay down.
They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden.
Come on, makes me want a snack and a nap.
They're saying 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last
You know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. Please tell me.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
No, what I'm saying. No, what I'm saying.
people have become, but listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump, the former defense secretaries, national security advisor, and his vice president, one, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him instead of the American people. People are tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a cakewalk for anyone.
So are they misguided, the 50%? Are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
Okay, hit pause on that. This is the zenith of that thing I was talking about, where it's that voter who doesn't follow the news and they get this little clip and they're like, oh my gosh, this is what
she thinks she thinks she ate with that. Oh my gosh, she thinks she was so clever. Oh,
but you know those clips, that's what's going to be on the social media of people who have the TDS and they don't necessarily love Kamala, but they'll hear that and it will convince them on an emotional level that Trump is out to get America.
Mm-hmm.
A town hall,
and it's just all made up.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Bret, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated. When he's
what is she talking about with the enemy of within?
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you. I
don't know. I'm curious. I mean, I know that he's talking about terrorists that are, here in this country. That's what that invokes to me is, he's talking about that enemy within Trump. Let's see if we can get this.
To me, I've heard him maybe refer to, or the campaign refer to, government being too big, maybe, and the deep state, those sorts of things. But
the enemy within
the enemy with this to me is one of those deals where it's about projecting, your mindset or your rhetoric onto your opposition, because that's what you hear from. Who's the guy who said
this was from this past weekend?
Okay, let's see. So she's picking up on this.
It's going to be a peaceful election day.
Well, he doesn't have any idea what's happening in all fairness. He spends most of his day sleeping. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
How are you going to guard against the bureaucrats undermining you?
Well, they're going to undermine. Well, I always say, so we have two enemies. We have the outside enemy, and then we have the enemy from within. And the enemy from within, in my opinion, is more dangerous than China, Russia, and all these countries, because if you have a smart president, he can handle them pretty easily. I got along great with all. I handled them.
So, I mean, it also seems like he's talking about like the deep state, you know, a little bit, because that wasn't, he repeated that in response to a question about bureaucrats. The people that are just against this country, want to see it fail, and are willing to do anything to see that this country is not successful.
It was an interesting response he gave. I'm not quite sure exactly. I don't think it was supposed to be an exact response. I think it was supposed to be vague enough to make you want to explore it in your mind, maybe, or maybe he was setting her up for a follow-up, but she didn't do it. I don't know. I think Trump is very media savvy and media aware, and he knows how to, like set the table. So
yeah,
like who knows?
It's almost like he wanted her to like ask, like beg the question, like what, like who is specifically the enemy, you know?
Or set it up for the next interview, like somebody, or like Kamala. Maybe he's setting it like 4D chess, and he's setting Kamala up to like bite on that one. I don't know.
I mean, she kind of is.
Question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying.
But that's exactly what they are trying to do. They're trying to lock him up.
They are doing. They've
gagged him. Yeah.
They've gotten people. What's his name? The meme guy on Twitter.
I always forget his name. Yeah, the guy that was joking about the day
he posted a meme on
text to vote Hillary meme. Yeah.
And to be fair, there was somebody who was doing it on the Republican side, or against the Republicans as well, and nothing happened to her.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is projection.
What Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way.
Doug Mackey, that's his name.
Doug Mackey, right? Poor guy.
Yes. Let me ask you this, Madam Vice President. You call Donald Trump. You call Donald Trump. He's misguided. You say now he's unstable.
He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Oh my gosh. I feel like no one's asked her this question yet. It's so refreshing to hear this question asked.
This is the one clip I've seen from this interview so far, and I thought it was beautiful. Like, you're on the stand fighting for your life, and the prosecutor just blasts you with this one.
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
She'd be smart to just say, like, 4 years is a long time, Brett. And even though Biden has had her interpretation of the wherewithal, to do this the last 4 years, who's to say what's going to happen the next 4? Just be honest, kind of like about it. Like, 'cause it's a valid kind of like thing to point out, but she's not doing that. That would go so many miles for her if she could just own up to the fact that we were unsure if he was going to be able to perform the rest of the 4 years. Like, that's
no concerns raised.
So easy.
Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
But
is.
you talked about it.
And Donald Trump
after George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
And the fact that she's just so willing to deflect to, like, that's has been news. Like that's in the past. You know, why like Trump's on the ballot, I'm on the ballot. Why are we talking about this?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out. Even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again, including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate. So that is a fact. That is a fact.
Madam Vice President, two more things. You were asked on 60 Minutes about the biggest threat that the world faces, that the U.S. faces. This is what you said.
Donald Trump, of course.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands. Okay, this attack on Israel.
Hey,
ballistic missiles.
okay, I'm gonna hit pause. Do you remember in the 2012 election when Romney said that Russia was a huge geopolitical threat, and Barack said the 1980s wants its policies back or whatever, you know? And it turned out that that's actually pretty on the mark.
Mm-hmm.
I always think these questions, like that one's pretty interesting because in retrospect going forward, it could be telling.
Yeah.
It could be important.
No, it's funny, for as much shit as people give, you know, Romney, that was pretty on the nose. And I think that in some ways people would still disagree with him on the right. But it's more of a semantics thing. It's like that became true, but it's not how it should be. And it's because of the failed policies that it's come to that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but Barack just made him look so dumb, but he was actually insightful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, I just think it's a very good question for an American leader.
Mm-hmm.
To do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power. That is one of my highest priorities.
A number of experts.
So her answer was Iran?
The FBI director had said that. But you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the #1 threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, in the several hours on each occasion that Iran posed a threat to Israel, I was there. Most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that is, and my commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put Iran in check.
The estimates in billions.
It was during Donald Trump's administration that Iran
regime.
That we had an American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches. Not to mention how Donald Trump has treated and talked about America's military and military service people, calling them suckers and losers, has diminished the significance.
We're talking over each other. I apologize.
I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the facts, which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election.
You hear that helicopter?
Is important.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran.
Whoa. That's weird.
It's flying over my building.
Yeah, we'll have to tell the chat about the strange object that you saw in the sky.
Yeah, there's people in the chat. I saw a UFO the other night for the first time. I've never seen one before, and it was fucking mind-blowing. Just something right out of the movie Predator. It was bizarre.
Yeah, it's
and now we have a helicopter flying over the meme ranch.
It makes me think even more that you have some secret military aircraft doing some routes over here.
And that would be my guess, that wasn't something from another world. It just seemed like, dude, it was cloaked. It was 3 a.m. I was in bed, seated up, looking out my window, and it was almost a full moon because it was like 3 nights ago. And I see this thing. It looks like a flock of geese going across my horizon over the treetops in a chevron. Same way geese fly or ducks fly.
And you said it was almost like you made a comparison earlier that was like almost like the way that my microphone is cloaked.
Yeah,
right
put
now.
your hand
Like,
not in front, but just behind. Just behind. See that?
yeah.
Okay, see how it's kind of like fuzzy? And you can see there's a difference between the object and the background, but it's picking up the background. That's what it did with the stars. You could see it move as it moved past the stars that were there. It's like it picked up the stars a little bit and brought them around the object. It kind of wrapped around the object. And so I don't know if the object was transparent-ish or more cloaked, like you would have seen the Predator in the movie Predator, where it was like, it was just kind of cloaked and it brought the background forward. But it was a giant chevron. It's huge, bigger than the Meme Ranch warehouse. And it had these power centers or lights. They weren't lights because they didn't project, but they were like glowing. It's like 3 on one chevron leg and 3 on the other and 1 in the middle. And so if you look online, you can see a chevron UFO like the Phoenix Lights. Is very, very, that's the closest thing I could think to describe this to you. And in fact, I'm a little worried that because what I saw was so weird that my brain was filling in information that wasn't there because I've seen that UFO. And I think my brain might have, filled in the blank a little bit and told me that's what I was seeing. It was different. It was definitely different. And it moved super fast across the sky horizon and no noise. Like you just heard that helicopter just now. The thing had no noise. And by the time I got up the back of the house, gone. So I don't know what I saw. It was a UFO for sure, but I don't know what it was.
You live in a pretty rural part of the country. It makes me wonder, like, what even a helicopter's doing out right now.
I get them like once a night or twice a night. They fly over late at night.
Do you have like a military base like in the same direction going somewhere?
Tinker's, south of us.
I guess it could be Tinker, yeah. Interesting.
Probably one of those domes, deep underground bases.
Contrast that is presented for folks to make a decision
and there are
that they feel.
Who look at what the administration did and say and think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things.
Very hard.
There are a lot of things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and that's why
I invite everyone to go to KamalaHarris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do.
And that's why we invited you here to see where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
and
they're giving me a hard rap.
Well, I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
It's almost a disservice to her there at the end that she was completing her statement, but I don't think Bret would have repeated the hard rap thing if they weren't like literally urging him to like get her to shut up. You know what I mean? Like that was so weird there because they could have just said it once in his ear and been done, but it sounded like they were like almost like persisting, like saying like finish it now, and it's like it's just not good. It's like the best way I can describe it, and I think that many people will sympathize with this, is it looks like they are giving her the same playbook that they gave Biden, which was to get in and out real quick, no messing around, no over speaking, no anything.
The basement
like that.
strategy.
The basement strategy. But she can't pull it off because Joe Biden, if you compare that to like a cane or a walker, you can kind of understand why he needs that. You can at least, even though you don't think it's the right way to do it, you can at least understand why they have to do it. We've been dealing with that for 4 years. But to hand her the cane or the walker just looks so unnatural and so bizarre because she shouldn't be anywhere near that type of handicap. So that's all I really have to say about that. I don't think people are going to buy it, and it's why we're seeing potentially the Kamala campaign even looking at talking to Joe Rogan. I don't think that's going to happen, but I read a news article earlier that said that the campaign was looking into options for Joe Rogan, and I just think that that's insane. Like
You know, I think
how is she like Joe Rogan's not going to record a 26-minute episode.
No, I think Joe would actually humanize her a lot. I think she should do it. I don't watch Joe Rogan, but I could see Joe wanting to give each person a fair shake, and he wouldn't make it. I think he wouldn't make it all about politics. I think he would try to explore, her own interest and background somewhat. And she'd be more comfortable with that. Like, hey, what about this picture that's online that saying that this isn't like how this is? You've seen the one where they're like all in the Indian garb. I saw it today on X, and they're like, these people don't go to black churches or something like that. So he could ask her in a funny way, like, is this what you wore to black church?
That would be really funny, actually. That's a good example. I don't know if they're gonna do it, but we've got this election is going to come up so quick. So we've done a lot of reacting to this interview tonight. It's been fun, but I want you guys to tell us what you think is going to happen with this election. Meme Ranch wants to document this moment because there's only one shot to really go back and look and see what everyone was feeling at this time. And we have many documentaries that sort of encapsulate this time in American politics coming your all's way. We have about 4 that we're working on all together just because we have so much footage that we had to break it from our original 2 documentary idea to a 4 documentary
Original
one, that's right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But as of late it's been 2, and now we're just kind of like saying fuck it, it's got to be 4 because there's just so much stuff that we have.
Could be.
So that's all coming in 2025, just because so much of it hinges on what happens with this election. Whether Trump wins or loses, we have stuff that's coming down the pike, and I think it's going to be interesting. Each piece is going to be evocative of a different type of cinema, different type of story that I think everyone's going to really enjoy watching. We don't know how it's going to be syndicated yet, whether it's going to be paywalled or anything like that, but we want to get it to as many people as possible, and we want to do live showcases. So we're looking at our options for those things. So
I think we will have a live showcase here at the Meme Ranch, and you can go to memeranch.com and look at visit to find out how to get here. Probably an exhibit around the election, right before it, hopefully.
Well, if you want to outro us, I think that I've said about all I've got to say, but I'm just excited, man.
Dude, I just want to grab you by the collar, not you, but just people out there, and just be like, this is history. We are creating future history right now. And you just need to smell the roses here, because this will come and go like COVID did. Like, I mean, imagine that. You've forgotten so much of it. Just pay attention to what's happening right now. Soak it in, and buckle up, because who knows what's going to happen.
Thank you guys.
Stay tuned to the Meme Ranch.
Yeah, seriously, thank you guys, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.